Deep within the cold, clear headwaters of the Pacific Northwest, where ancient mountains weep snowmelt into narrow channels and the air carries the scent of pine and stone, a story begins that is as old as the rivers themselves. Here, in the gravel beds of a fast-moving stream, life stirs beneath the surface in a form so small, so fragile, that it seems impossible it could become one of the most extraordinary creatures the natural world has ever produced. The salmon, a fish of legendary endurance and breathtaking instinct, is about to begin its journey. It is a journey that will take it from the sheltered darkness of a river, streambed to the vast and unforgiving Pacific Ocean, and then, against every conceivable odd, back again to the very place it was born. No other creature on Earth navigates such extremes. No other creature sacrifices so completely for the sake of the next generation. This is the full life cycle of the salmon, told from the moment of its creation to the final, triumphant, and heartbreaking moments of its existence. It begins in autumn when the female salmon, heavy with eggs and driven by a force she does not choose but cannot resist, selects her spawning site with extraordinary precision. She does not choose randomly. She reads the river the way a master craftsman reads the grain of wood, sensing the flow rate, the oxygen content, the size of the gravel, the depth of the current above. When she finds the right place, a spot where cold, oxygenated water will percolate upward through the stones and bathe her eggs in life-giving flow, she begins to dig. Using powerful sweeps of her tail, she excavates a shallow depression in the riverbed called a red. The work is exhausting. Her body, already weakened by the long journey upstream, gives everything it has left. A single female Chinook salmon may move hundreds of kilograms of gravel in just a few days. She fans and digs and fans until the nest is ready. Then, at the precise moment of spawning, a male moves alongside her. Their bodies quiver in unison. Thousands of eggs, pale orange and no larger than a small pea, settle into the spaces between the gravel stones. The male releases a cloud of milt. In the cold and the current, life is made. The eggs now lie hidden beneath the gravel, cradled by the river itself. The female remains nearby for a time, fanning the red with gentle tail movements to keep sediment from smothering her clutch, all defending her nest from rival females who would dig their own reds too close. But her body is failing. The salmon does not eat during its upstream migration. By the time the eggs are laid, she has consumed nearly all of her own muscle tissue to fuel the journey. Her skin has changed color, turned deep red and mottled. Her jaw has hooked. Her eyes have clouded. She is dying, and she knows nothing of it, because knowing is not required. What is required is already done. Within days of spawning, she will be gone. Her body will drift downstream, or settle on the riverbank, and the nutrients locked within her flesh, nitrogen and phosphorus drawn from the deep ocean over years of feeding, will seep into the soil, feed the insects, nourish the trees that shade the river that sheltered her eggs. Even in death, the salmon gives. Beneath the gravel, the eggs begin their slow transformation. It will take weeks, the exact duration depending on water temperature. The colder the water, the longer the wait. Inside each translucent sphere, a tiny embryo develops with extraordinary delicacy. At first, there is nothing visible but the yolk, a golden reserve of energy that will sustain the developing fish through its earliest and most vulnerable weeks. Then, gradually, dark pigment appears. Two eyes take shape, impossibly large for the creature they belong to. A spine forms. A heartbeat begins. The eggs are not passive during this period. They are exquisitely sensitive. A sudden rise in water temperature, a pulse of silt from a storm upstream, the footstep of a careless deer crossing the shallows above the red. Any of these can kill them. Disease moves silently through a red. A single infected egg can devastate an entire clutch. Of the thousands of eggs laid by a single female, fewer than half will survive to hatch. Nature is generous with numbers precisely because it is merciless with outcomes. When the moment finally arrives, the eggshell splits from within. The creature that emerges is called an alevin, and it bears only the faintest resemblance to the fish it will become. It is tiny, translucent, and still attached to a large yolk sac that hangs beneath its belly like a lantern. It cannot swim freely. It cannot feed. It does not need to, not yet. The yolk sac is its entire world, a portable pantry containing everything it needs for the first weeks of its life. The alevin remains in the gravel, hidden from predators, nourished from within, growing stronger with each passing day. The yolk sac shrinks as the fish grows, its fins develop, its gills begin to function. Its tiny body, once a pale ghost of a creature, starts to take on the first hints of color and form. Beneath the river bottom, in the cold and the dark and the rushing water, a salmon is being assembled, piece by piece, day by day, with a precision that no human engineering has ever matched. When the yolk sac is nearly absorbed, instinct drives the alevin upward through the gravel. This moment, called emergence, is one of the most dangerous of the salmon's entire life. The young fish, now called a fry, pushes through the spaces between the stones and enters open water for the very first time. It is immediately exposed. The river is full of predators, larger fish, diving birds, all aquatic insects with crushing mouthparts. The fry is less than 3 centimeters long. It has no camouflage, no speed, no experience, and no parent to guide it. What it has is instinct, and instinct alone will have to be enough. In the first hours after emergence, the fry must find food, establish a small territory in the stream, and avoid being eaten. Many do not manage all three. Herons stand motionless in the shallows, waiting. Kingfishers plunge from overhanging branches. Larger juvenile salmon, hatched earlier in the season, compete aggressively for feeding positions. The river, which sheltered the eggs so carefully, now treats the fry as simply another small thing that might be eaten. Those that survive their first days begin to feed on tiny invertebrates drifting in the current. Mayfly larvae, midges, water fleas, and anything small enough to swallow. The fry stake out feeding territories in the stream, positioning themselves where the current delivers the most food with the least effort. They grow quickly. Over the coming weeks and months, they develop into what are called parr, recognizable by the distinctive dark markings along their sides called parr marks, which provide camouflage against the dappled light of the stream bed. The parr stage can last anywhere from a few months to several years, depending on the species. Chinook salmon, the largest of all Pacific salmon, may spend 2 years or more in freshwater before they are ready to move on. During this time, the river is their entire universe. They learn its pools and riffles, its hiding places, and its feeding lanes. They grow stronger, faster, more aware. Then something extraordinary happens. As the days lengthen and the water temperature rises in late winter or early spring, a hormonal cascade is triggered within the parr's body. It is one of the most dramatic physiological transformations in the animal kingdom. The fish undergoes a process called smoltification. Its parr marks fade and disappear, replaced by a bright silver sheen that will serve as camouflage in the open ocean. Its kidneys restructure themselves to handle salt water. Its gills change their chemistry. Its behavior shifts. Where once it defended a territory and avoided open water, it now becomes restless, schooling with other smolts, orienting downstream, driven by an urgency it cannot name toward a destination it has never seen. The river that was its home has become a corridor. The ocean is calling, and the call cannot be ignored. The downstream migration of the smolts is itself a perilous journey. The young fish travel hundreds of kilometers, navigating past waterfalls, through reservoirs, past the turbines of hydroelectric dams that kill thousands each year, and out through river estuaries where salt water and fresh water meet in a churning transition zone. Here, in the estuary, the smolts pause briefly, acclimatizing to the increasing salinity, feeding heavily on the rich life of the tidal zone. Predators converge from every direction. Seals and sea lions patrol the river mouths. Cormorants dive from above. Striped bass and larger fish wait in ambush in the deeper channels. Of the hundreds of smolts that may leave a single stretch of river, only a fraction will reach the open ocean alive. But those that do are transformed. They enter the Pacific as small. Silver, an extraordinarily capable fish, ready for a life of oceanic wandering that will take them thousands of kilometers from the place they were born. In the open ocean, the salmon grow with astonishing speed. Fueled by the extraordinary productivity of the North Pacific, they feed on krill, herring, squid, and smaller fish, converting the ocean's abundance into muscle and fat at a rate that will power the final journey yet to come. They travel in loose aggregations, following temperature gradients and prey availability across thousands of kilometers of featureless blue water. They face new predators here: orcas, sharks, sea lions, and the relentless pressure of commercial fishing fleets whose nets sweep the ocean with industrial efficiency. A salmon that survives all of this may spend between 1 and 5 years at sea, and growing from a slender smolt into a massive, powerful adult. The Chinook salmon, king of its kind, can reach lengths of over a meter and weights exceeding 45 kilograms, though most are considerably smaller. Through all of it, encoded somewhere in the salmon's brain, in a way that science has studied but not fully decoded, the memory of home is preserved. The magnetic signature of the river it was born in, the chemical fingerprint of its natal stream, a scent so specific, so individual, that the salmon will recognize it from thousands of kilometers away, years after it last experienced it. And then, one day, the salmon turns. Something shifts in its internal compass. The feeding stops, or nearly stops. The fish begins to orient not toward prey, but toward a direction, a bearing, a pull that comes from deep within its biology. It is heading home. The return migration is perhaps the most studied and least fully understood phenomenon in all of animal behavior. The salmon navigates by the Earth's magnetic field across the open ocean, finding its way back to the general coastline of its birth with a precision that astonishes researchers. Then, as it approaches the coast, it switches to a different navigation system, following the chemical trail of its home river, detecting concentrations of specific compounds in the water, measured in parts per trillion, homing in on a scent that it imprinted upon as a young fry years before. It enters the river at the same mouth it exited as a smolt, and it begins to swim upstream. What follows is one of the great physical spectacles of the natural world. The salmon does not eat during its upstream migration. Everything it has stored in its body over years of ocean feeding, every gram of fat, every ounce of muscle, must be sufficient to carry it back to its spawning grounds, sometimes hundreds of kilometers upstream, against currents, over waterfalls, through rapids that would defeat anything less driven. Bears line the riverbanks, wading at falls and shallow pools where the salmon must leap and struggle, plucking them from the water with practiced ease. Eagles circle overhead. Osprey plunge from the sky. Even wolves have been observed fishing the salmon runs in certain regions. The river, which once sheltered the eggs and nurtured the fry, is now a gauntlet. And still the salmon come, silver and red and driven, pushing upstream in numbers that once darkened the rivers of an entire continent. Though those numbers are now a ghost of what they were, the salmon leaps. This is the image that defines the species in the human imagination. That moment of pure, explosive effort when the fish launches its body clear of the water, fighting gravity and current simultaneously, seeking purchase on the far side of a waterfall, with fins and muscle, and a will that is not a will in any conscious sense, but is so powerful in its effect that it might as well be. Some falls require dozens of attempts. Some fish fail and are swept back downstream, exhausted, and try again. A salmon that cannot ascend a particular obstacle will sometimes find a way around it, probing the margins of the river for side channels, slacker water, any path that leads upward. The drive is absolute. Nothing stops it except death. And death itself is only a temporary interruption of the cycle, because the nutrients in the body of a failed migrant will still find their way into the river system, still feed the insects, still nourish the streamside forest, still contribute to the world that will shelter the next generation's eggs. Those that reach the spawning grounds complete the circle. A female finds her gravel, a male finds his female. The river fills again with the quivering, urgent dance of reproduction. The eggs are laid. The milt is released. A new generation begins its slow development in the cold and the dark beneath the stones. And the adult salmon, spent and dying, drift in the shallows. Their bodies, rich with the chemistry of the deep ocean, are pulled apart by ravens and bears, by mink and raccoons, by the patient work of bacteria and fungi. They dissolve back into the river, into the soil, into the roots of the cedars and the alders that lean out over the water. In a very real and measurable sense, the forest of the Pacific Northwest is built from the bodies of salmon. The trees are taller near salmon streams. The soil is richer. The whole ecosystem is shaped by this one species. and its extraordinary cycle of life and death and regeneration. This is what makes the salmon more than a fish. It is an ecological force. It is a bridge between the ocean and the land, between the deep sea and the mountain forest, between one generation and the next. Every salmon that completes this journey is a triumph of biology so improbable, so magnificent, that it demands our attention and our respect. The rivers that once ran silver with their millions are quieter now, diminished by dams and pollution and the warming of the waters. But where salmon still run, the ancient rhythm continues. The eggs still hatch in the cold gravel. The fry still emerge into a dangerous world and grow against all odds. The smolts still transform and descend to the sea. And the adults still return, battered and brilliant, to the water that made them, to give everything they have to the next generation, in a final act of pure biological devotion that is, in its own wordless way, one of the most moving things this planet has to offer. If you found this journey as extraordinary as it truly is, share it with someone who needs to be reminded of what the wild world is still capable of. Subscribe to follow more stories from the frontiers of nature. And leave a comment below telling us which moment of the salmon's journey moved you most. The river is waiting. The story is never really over.